Welcome to the new Chemist. We're glad you're listening. Feel free to download this podcast on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other platforms. Here on the new Chemist, we discuss chemistry, which simply put is the science of change, as well as careers, community, research, and COVID 19. We're happy you're tuning in. Changing things up a bit this season, we will focus on several other aspects of chemistry, particularly Nobel laureates. First, Nobel highlights. Fleck and L.K. James Nobel laureates in chemistry highlights the first chemistry Nobel laureate, who was Jacobus van 't Hoff. He was born in 1852 and died in 1911. He received the first Nobel Prize in 1901 at 49 years old. The prize was given for his work and discovery of the laws of chemical kinetics and other laws governing the osmotic pressure of solutions. Some background on Van 't Hoff. He was the son of a physician and was interested in experimental chemistry from a little boy. After completing secondary school, he studied practical chemistry at the Polytechnic School of Delft. Distinguishing himself at Delft, he completed the 3-year course in a shorter time frame and placed first in the examination in 1872. Even so, to learn more about chemistry, he spent the winters of 1872 to 1873 with Auguste Kekulé and in 1874 with Charles Worth. His contributions and their implications span wide from physical chemistry with kinetics to biological chemistry, with some of the investigations of enzymes being derived from his work. Indeed, an excellent scientist. My guest today is Keshav Raghavendran. Thanks for joining me today. It is good to hear from you. Just briefly, I'll inform my audience about you. Keshav graduated from Georgia Tech in 2018 with a Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Engineering and is currently pursuing a medical degree from New York Medical College. Keshav has participated in a variety of research projects, starting with the Verma Lab at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, studying therapeutic targets of myelodysplastic syndromes and leukemia, and most recently completed 2 projects at Westchester Medical Center, studying the respiratory sequelae of subarachnoid hemorrhage and the demographics and specific causes of mortality of patients suffering from convulsive status epilepticus. Please welcome Keshav Raghavendran. Hi, Keshav. It's so good to have you on. Thanks again for joining me. So, let's get started. What have been your long-standing interests in the field of science?
Yeah, so I've been interested in science for such a long time, since childhood, really. And there's a lot of different things that brought me to it. And I think the first and most important one was just the constant kind of learning and evolving that science occurs through. And if you're someone that practices science or is part of the scientific field, you go through the same kind of development and evolution as well. You are constantly learning things. Every field is constantly evolving. So you're never stagnant. You're always changing as times change, as things change, everything changes. So you change with it. And I think the second thing that really drew me to science was that you're able to make a real tangible impact on people's lives. With your understanding of science and your understanding of how things work, you can manipulate things and change some things so that you can, potentially fix some problems or even be proactive about things to really make a significant impact upon people in the world that we live in. I think those two factors were huge reasons why I was drawn to science and can constantly pursue science, the scientific field.
Yeah, I completely agree with you because I think, or I've come to understand that the more you learn, the more you realize there's so much more to learn.
Absolutely.
As I think even now, especially during this pandemic time, we can see the significance of science and the use of science in terms of developing and eventually testing the vaccination for COVID-19,
Mhm.
and also in our daily lives in which we go to doctors and sit down on the science teachers and on the science professors and perform research in my case, as well as you do
Mhm.
research as well. So, how do you maintain view of the bigger picture in your life and in your career in general? Given all of the difficulties which I'm sure you faced,
Mhm.
all of the challenges and which a lot of people are facing due to this pandemic, how do you maintain view of the bigger picture?
Yeah, so just like you said, it is very, very, very difficult. And at times it's very easy to get kind of bogged down by the minutia, and the everyday little challenges that we face. And, especially with the pandemic, just things are magnified, times 10 or even more. But
Mm-hmm.
I'll kind of give you an example. So recently, with medical education, what we have are like graded clinical examples. Basically, we're told to like, okay, go take a history and physical on a patient. This patient will then grade you based on how well you performed the physical and things like that. So I just recently got my grade back for one of my encounters, and I was like looking through the checklist, and I was kind of getting frustrated about like where I lost some points. I was like, I mean, it's such little things that you lose points on. But then at the end of the comment section, the patient wrote, I felt very well respected. I felt heard, and I felt that if you were my doctor, I would be well taken care of. And honestly, once I read that one statement, all of my anger, all of my frustration went out the window. I was like, okay, you know what? I can get better. Maybe the patient's criticisms was valid, and uh, the specific techniques, we can always get better at that. But at the end of the day, why I'm doing what I'm doing is for the patient, and it's to make this patient feel like they have a partner in healthcare. So taking little things like that, realizing what's the bigger goal of it all, what are you really trying to achieve, and kind of validating that made
Mm-hmm.
me feel like, okay, this is all worth it. Like the challenges that I'm facing, academically right now, um, personally, just
Mm-hmm.
it's all for something. It's all meant for something. So just hearing that validation made me realize, okay, it's all going to be worth it.
Yeah, I can say a lot of things on that. It's important to be focused on specific things in terms of having a growth mindset, which is very important, as
Mm-hmm.
well as validation is important, and it plays a large role in a lot of people's growth in academia, as well as even in the lab. Having a professor say you did a good job is significant. Having a professor say you're on the right path,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
does compliment. So I've read your bio, and we knew each other beforehand before you went to medical school. So my question to you is, how have you been adaptive and creative in the field of science?
Yeah, so I mean, from where I'm at right now, I'm definitely in the, I'm still a student, I'm still in the learning phase.
Yeah.
Before I don't think I can make any like real significant contribution yet. But the ways that I've been creative and adaptable is mainly in that learning is how I choose to understand and kind of process information. Because with science and with just medicine, the field that I'm in, there's so much. There's just so much information. I believe one of your other guests, Tommy, he said it's like drinking water from a fire hose, and that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. There's just so much. So I'm not the type of person that can sit down and read a textbook for like 8 to 10 hours a day. So I've had to be, pretty creative with just the ways that I, understand some things or even memorize some things. There's lots of resources outside that kind of put, let's say, a specific medical condition. They'll put it in like a picture so that you're making associations with words and specific clinical symptoms and treatments, and they'll all pull it together. And like that's how I've chosen to learn different diseases, so that when a question comes up or when a patient presents with a specific set of symptoms, I'm now making the association. So just from handling all that information, how I choose to apply it, I think has been the real way that I've been the most creative or adaptable, at least right now. Hopefully I make more significant impacts in the future so that, I can say that, I did something new, or I did something new to help someone. But as of right now, that's where I'm at.
Okay, that's good. And also, actually, before I get to that, so you said that you've been adaptive and creative in your learning style, your approach to the content. So in what ways? Give us some examples of some resources that you use for people who are listening.
Yeah, so I mean, there's tons of things out there, specifically for medical students. I'm sure that they've all heard of this, or if you're going into medical school, you'll definitely hear about these. But Sketchy is a big one.
Okay.
That's the picture thing that I was talking about.
Yeah.
A good tool for kind of, because inevitably with medicine, you're just gonna have to end up memorizing some things, is Anki. Basically a like kind of like a I want to say that it's basically a flashcard device, but it has its own algorithm for spatial repetition and memory and things like that. So it's a good tool. Personally, what I've done is I've kind of brought it back to some of our engineering roots with the ways that we've kind of like understood things back in some of our intro BME classes, where we've had to just, they just kind of threw us a problem. We had to just go understand it and break it down in our own terms. So a lot of the body, when it comes to like blood flow or circulation, I'm breaking it down into like pressures and flows, and just understanding like resistances, like understanding it through that means. So if you're breaking it down that way, it kind of made more sense to me, just because it was going back to things that I've been dealing with for a couple of years now. So yeah, those are the couple of ways that I've been trying to learn everything.
That's good, dude. That's good. For me, I remember, you may not remember this, but I remember a while back, this is when we were still at Georgia Tech. I think it was me, you, and a few other people. And I started riddling off one of my raps for the amino acids.
Yes, I do remember. Yes.
Yeah. So for me, that's kind of how I learn things. I put it to a rhythm, I make a rhyme. Also, I use associations, draw pictures and stuff like that. But for me, my main modality is through rhymes and raps and lyrics.
And we all have our own unique ways to learn things. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we have to make sure we're enjoying it. But I would just throw this out there to you. I've interviewed several other people, and one of the ways, and also graduate students and medical students, and one of the ways they have also been able to make an impact is also through mentorship. So that may be something you may want to consider. But I'm sure that a lot of people are trying to get into medical school, and you achieve that. So I think that's commendable. So my question to you on that note is, to this point in your studies, how have you been able to be successful? You were able to graduate, you were able to get into medical school, and so far you've been progressing. How have you been able to maintain the success that you need to progress from stages, from graduation to medical school?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the question itself is very focused on me, but when I think about why I'm where I am, is mainly because of the people around me. I have to give a ton of people a lot of credit for helping me out through the entire process, starting with my family, who's just been there for me through everything. My mother is a physician, so she's been a wonderful role model and a leader, basically guiding me, throughout the medical field. And whenever I have any challenges, she's just like, "Yep, I faced the exact same thing. Don't worry, kid, you're on the right path." But then also my friends, who are basically my second family. They've been there for me through everything, personally, academically, any problems that I've faced. They've been there for me. They're the reason that like I feel like I've grown as a person throughout the years. They've challenged me, they've supported me, they've taught me things, I've taught them things. So both just the people around me has been a major reason why I'm at where I'm at. And I don't think there's anything really special about me. I think I'm just persistent. I'm stubborn. Like if I fail one time, I'm gonna get right back up and keep trying until someone else, until I just can't keep going anymore. So I think that's really the only thing. I'm not like the smartest person. I'm not the most talented, but I
Same.
you know I'm persistent. And I think maybe that's probably the only thing that's kept me going, really.
That's good. Yeah, for me too. It's the same. I'm not any genius or anything of that sort, but one of the things I do say, or one of the things I do is I work hard.
Mhm.
And I believe in being persistent. It's interesting that you use the word stubborn because one of the professors from MIT that I interviewed said the exact same thing about himself. He said, I'm just stubborn. Yeah, I stick with it and I go
Yeah.
along as he was discussing his work in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic and his contributions there. Also, continuing on, um, how have you thought or found the right environment for you to thrive scientifically and intellectually? Why did you, in other words, why did you choose Georgia Tech and why did you choose New York Medical College to study medicine?
Well, I guess from a general point of view, when it comes to the environment, just like I said before, it's surrounding yourself by the right people. Those people have caused me to grow both personally and academically. And then when it comes to both tech and NYMC, well, I chose tech mainly because it was first of all away from home. I had grown up in the Northeast for 18 years at that point, so I just wanted to kind of leave and go somewhere different. And
Mhm.
tech was different. It's in the South, completely different in the Northeast, and there was no one that I really knew at tech. I was kind of just on my own. There was no like, oh, like if I went to, let's say, a local university, I could always come home if things were difficult or I just wasn't feeling right. But when you're like 800 miles away, it's a little bit more difficult. So it was kind of out there on my own, which I wanted to be. I just wanted to see if I could make it.
Okay.
And then when it comes to NYMC, I think at that point I'd realized that, okay, I think after 4 years of being on my own, I can do it. And then I chose NYMC mainly because of the opportunities and the proximity to New York City. So and just the opportunities that it would afford me, tons of hospitals, tons of different populations, like it's a diverse population. Um, Kind of the patients that we treat, whether it be in the Bronx or Manhattan or Westchester, it's
Oh, wow.
whole different subsets of population. So we see a whole different um,
All right.
disease profile. Yeah, so it's just the variety. I think that's what really drew me there.
Okay, good. Yeah, dude, diversity is so important. And I think diversity complements the learning in several ways and not just with diverse populations. So, you said you were in New York City. So my question to you is, how have you been able to matriculate with the COVID-19 pandemic and clinicals and being in New York? How has that interplay between those three variables? How has that played out?
Yeah, it's been very difficult. So I actually started medical school last year before the pandemic started. So that was kind of like normal and baseline. And just
Uh,
comparing last year to this year, so this year completely virtual, all classes are virtual, very few clinical encounters.
okay.
So basically, kind of the way med school works is your third and fourth year are purely clinical. You're
Mm-hmm.
in, some rotation site constantly, but first and second year they kind of try to get your feet wet, but with just the amount of restrictions and um, the amount of kind of safeguards that you have to go through, it's been very difficult. Thankfully, our school has been really trying to get us still into clinic somehow, some way. So when I do go back to campus, they're gonna start giving us preceptors or mentors that we'll be able to shadow and like potentially work with some patients. So it's been very difficult for sure, but I think you know you can't avoid the pandemic one way or another, especially if you're trying to go into medicine. It's a reality of life. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to take the right safeguards and just kind of get in there and do what you can to really make a difference.
Yeah, I agree. You can't avoid every difficulty. You can't avoid. Many times you have to embrace. You have to acknowledge it, embrace it, come up with a strategy to deal with it, and progress through it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, dude, I
Yeah.
agree. Even for me, I'm in graduate school right now, and the pandemic has affected us in terms of the formality of the instruction and even with lab interactions. So I completely agree. Um, so given your responsibilities and accomplishments, how do you maintain a
What they're really
balanced
trying to
life?
stress in medical school right now is to avoid physician burnout and maintain some sort of work-life balance because it's so easy to get lost. And I could definitely get better. I'm not going to say I'm an expert at it at all, but I think for right now, what's worked best for me is just physically schedule in breaks. Like I've turned into a big scheduler. I like to know what my day is going to be, and I
Mm-hmm.
schedule breaks, just force myself to take a break somehow, some way. I literally will write down, okay, lunch, go make food, or go take a shower now. Like it's to that point. um I'm also a big sports guy, so thankfully, like, there are some sports on and they're usually at night, so that's usually when my break is, whenever
Yeah.
one of the games is on or
So,
something like that. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a nice way to like kind of schedule my break around something that's already a preset time. But other than that, sometimes you just feel like cooped up in my room all day. That's where I do all of my studying. So I just feel, locked in my room all day. So sometimes I'll just go out and run just to like get the blood pumping and just, see the outdoors for the first time in a couple of days. So just
Yeah.
physically putting it in my schedule and, forcing myself to do it really really gets me to take it. And then I think the most important thing is when you're taking your break, fully enjoy it. Sometimes what I used to do in undergrad was, okay, I'll watch the game, but I'll also like try to do some studying on the side, some like busy work that I don't really need to pay attention with. And you end up not getting either done. You don't ever watch it fully, and you don't ever get the work done properly. So I think I
Wow.
realized that you need to fully focus. Don't multitask. Don't try to like, do it halfway. Fully enjoy it, and then when you're done, fully get to work.
Yeah, I completely do. That's what, good. That's good. That's very good. I might take something and write that down. Because in several ways, um, when we decide to rest, I think we should make sure that we're intentional with resting, not
Mm-hmm.
trying to, out of guilt, I'm going to do some work on the side as
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
or go to the gym, and then you carry a book with you, like a textbook
yeah,
or something of that
yeah.
sort. So yeah, I completely agree. I'm there. I'm there with you in terms of making sure you fully rest. So, continuing on, why did you choose biomedical engineering as a field to major in during your undergraduate year? Why did you choose it?
Yeah, so it was actually you asking me for why I chose it, but it was almost a little bit of indecision. Like I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do coming out of high school. Like I knew that I wanted math to be like I wanted a big math component of my future career. I also like biology, chemistry, just all of the sciences. So I knew I wanted to do something in there. And when I heard about biomedical engineering, it was a big kind of like a big mishmash of everything. You'd learn this, you'd learn that. You learn a little bit of everything so that you could eventually go do something with it. You're learning all these skills and you're going to take these skills and you can do whatever you want with it. So that not being forced down a specific pathway or not being like, okay, you can only do this one thing really drew me toward biomedical engineering because it was just, you're going to learn skills. What you do with those skills is up to you. And that's what really drew me towards biomedical engineering, especially at the start.
So the versatility of the skill set, basically.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Versatility of the skill set. And for me, what drew me to biomedical engineering was I was interested in device design. So
Mm-hmm.
at the time, so those are things that drew me. So why did you choose medicine as a field to do your doctoral studies in?
Yeah,
Why
so
choose medicine?
yes,
Almost like the med school interview question. Why choose medicine? Why?
yeah. And I mean, I don't know if this is the traditional med school answer, but like I remember for our BME classes towards the end, especially around, I think this was around senior year, for one of the classes, I'll never forget this. So the professor introduced a guest being like, well, this guy has sold his startup for, you know, I don't know, tens or $20 million. So you know you're getting the best educate. You know you're getting the best guy here. I just kind of looked at myself and I was like, is this really how I want to be introduced for the rest of my life, as just how much money I made or how much money I made someone else? I was like, no, I want my self-worth to be valued from what I can do for people, for how much I can help someone. Like, yeah, of course, money is great, but that's not what I want to be known for at the end of the day. That's not, what I want to be remembered for. And that was like the eureka moment of, yeah, I don't think engineering is for me. I was kind of on the fence, and that's what really pushed me towards medicine. Just the idea that your worth is what you can do for someone else. That's what mattered more to me than anything else, and that's why I got into biomedical engineering. Like, I imagined a day where, like, I'd be in my own office, designing devices for patients, working with them, working with their lifestyles.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I learned about biomedical engineering, the more it just wasn't like that. And the more medicine was turning out to be like that, where it's, you're working with patients to come up with solutions. It's not just the general, okay, I'm the doctor, listen to me. You're working with the patient to come up with the solution that's best for them. Like, I have the information, but you're the expert in your own life. So let's work together to come up with a solution for that. That's what I realized, like, that's what I wanted. And that's what I'm getting from medicine. And that's why I chose medicine. And I'm so happy I stuck with that choice for that reason.
Right, that's very good. I completely agree. It's not this, and I agree in several ways. Our self worth should be tied to intrinsic core values and not just monetary descriptors. Even though in many ways people say your net worth is tied to those monetary descriptors,
Yeah.
but your self worth, I think, should be tied to core values. That's just my perspective, and it seems like it's yours as well. So, along the same line, what advice do you have to those wanting to pursue the field you are currently studying in? So you just said that you're interested in medicine, and your interest is tied to how you want to help people and how you want there to be a dialogue in the clinical environment in which both of you approach the situation, you with your expertise, the patient with their situation, expert in how they're feeling, and you come to some beneficial conclusion. So what advice do you have to those wanting to pursue the field you are currently studying in?
Yeah, so there's a lot of kind of aspects to that. So I guess the first thing that I would say is, yes, it's great that you want to help someone, and I'm sure that's the core of everyone who wants to go into medicine. Yes, we all want to help people, but if that's the only reason you're going into medicine, medicine may not be it for you. There has to be some sort of kind of selfish motivator that's driving you towards medicine. And for me, it was the constantly learning, constantly developing. Like, I want to be a better person 10 years from now than I am today. I want to be much better. And medicine allows me to do that. So I would say really make sure that medicine is for you, because it's a long grind, from the day you enter medical school till the day you get your first real job is probably close to like 10 years. So to go through 10 years of school and then residency and then fellowship or whatever extra schooling you want to do, you have to make sure that there's something in it for you, that there's some internal gain that you are getting from medicine that no other field can give you. And that's what will really drive you to be the best physician or whatever role of healthcare you want to be. Other than that, be patient and be persistent. It's a long grind. Like, a lot of people, what they do is they go into a career right out of college, and then once they're done with that, they choose to come into medical school. So there's no real rush, being like, I have to go straight into medical school right out of undergrad. Absolutely not. The average, I think the average age of my incoming class was 27. So if you're graduating around 23, 24, people have worked for a couple of years. A lot of students have children, have families. So, like, have a life outside of medical school. If you want to have a life before medical school, that's absolutely fine. Just be patient. If you have to apply multiple times, if you have to redo some coursework, redo the MCAT, it's all perfectly fine. It's a long journey. No one
Mm.
really cares if you did it right the first time. Just do the best that you can in every aspect.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, that's basically it.
good. That's good. Being patient and persistent, because at the end of the day, we're all on a journey, and also our paths are different. So just because one person went to medical school in 2 years after undergrad, or 1 year, or did the traditional, or just went directly after, doesn't mean you have to do the same.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. All that matters is the care that you can give to the patient. So whatever gets you to do the best for that, that's all that matters. Doesn't matter what path you take. You said that perfectly.
Yeah. So, Keshav, what has been some of the most beneficial advice you have received?
Huh. So advice that I've received. So I wouldn't say this has been explicitly told to me, but I think what all of my mentors have tried to really emphasize upon me or get me to do it. I think the best way to sum it up is, you know, fall in love with the process of becoming great. Really enjoy
Mm-hmm.
the really enjoy the kind of struggle that you're going through now.
Mm-hmm.
For yes, it's for some other bigger picture goal, like yes, me, studying right now is for to eventually become a doctor. But if I don't enjoy it now, I'm not going to enjoy being that physician. I'm not going to enjoy the work that I'm eventually going to have to do. So really enjoy the struggle, the hard work, all the skills and experiences that you're learning, all the kind of mistakes that you make throughout the process, because that's what you're eventually going to learn from. You learn more from your mistakes than all of your successes. So really just enjoy that process. Get good at just getting back up after you make a mistake and keep going. That's the only way that you're going to learn. And I think people showing me that really taught me to be persistent and taught me to just keep going no matter what, because that's the only right thing to do. Just keep going.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's important to embrace the struggle and, our process to become doctors, lawyers, accountants, professors, technicians. It's important to be a person of value, not
Mm-hmm.
just uh, someone who can bring value and someone who has core value and who lives
Mm-hmm.
with. Yes, and I think it's also important to watch out for the destination fallacy in which you think I must arrive to this place, then I'll be happy, or I must arrive to this next phase, then I'll be happy.
Absolutely.
And yeah, dude. So my last question for you, Keshav, before we conclude, perfect scenario. Given this pandemic, I take it we all have had situations where we could say, I wish something was a little different. If you had to come up with a perfect scenario in the next 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
what would it be within the context of your medical education and life?
What
What would it be?
well, that's a great question, and I think my first, I don't know if this would be my answer maybe in a couple of days, but my first gut reaction went to kind of something that I've been thinking about for a while, is that this whole pandemic has kind of taught all of us the importance of health and hygiene. You know,
Yeah.
just taking everything very seriously. It's very easy to catch a cold or catch the flu. We see
Mm-hmm.
how easy it is to catch COVID just from going outside, going to a restaurant. You could still be masked up and you would take all the proper precaution. You could still catch a virus. So I think the perfect situation for me right now is that we all take our health a lot more seriously. We
Mm-hmm.
understand how fragile it is and
Mm-hmm.
how truly important and precious our health is, and how much we need to take care of it for the long term. I think for me right now, that's the answer that I would say is a perfect scenario.
Oh, that's good. It's important for everyone to realize that their health and your health is very important. So, Keshav, thanks again for joining me today. It is good to have you on. It was good to have you on. Thank you. Next, We have big ideas in organic chemistry. Structure of molecules, part one. The structure of three-dimensional molecules can be predicted using an application of correctly drawn Lewis dot structures, which is called valence shell electron pair repulsion theory, or Gillespie-Nyholm theory, named after Ronald Gillespie and Ronald Nyholm. This is so interesting. VESPR involves valence bond theory, showing all valence electrons and including bonding and non-bonding electrons, in some cases referred to as lone pairs, and maximizing their separation in three-dimensional space, so as to minimize repulsions. And this is, of course, connected to Coulomb's law. VESPR is an alternative that can inform and start the journey in understanding molecular geometry, whether it be linear alkynes, trigonal planar arrangements of the carbon atoms in some alkenes, or the tetrahedral arrangement of the carbon atoms around some carbon atoms in alkenes. The key idea, ladies and gentlemen, is that the valence electrons repel, and thus the electrons will take on, so to speak, an arrangement that minimizes the repulsion.
Thanks for listening. We're glad you were able to tune into this podcast. Once again, this is The New Chemist, where we discuss chemistry, which simply put is the science of change, as well as the other sciences, careers, community, research, and COVID-19. Thanks again for listening. Note, the views on this podcast represent those of my guests and I.